need for a mother to enter the workforce has resulted in less breastfed babies. This requires more intervention and support for the mother. This is the key to the success of mother and infant. The amazing thing about breast milk is that it's not just for nourishment. It actually is a pain reliever, which is very shocking to most people. It is not for everyone, but those that do choose or have the goal of breastfeeding, in order to avoid roadblocks, they really need support. Support is one of the most important things for a breastfeeding mother. What's really interesting about breast milk is that it has a lot of antibodies. Those antibodies support the natural flora in the belly, which is what actually kills and doesn't allow bacteria to enter the belly. And there's so many things that an infant can come across and they're more susceptible to. And so this breast milk really does provide the antibodies that keep them from getting that. Another really interesting thing about breast milk and the baby is the baby's tummy at 1 day is about this size. Now, when the mother first begins to lactate, all that she's producing is colostrum, which pretty much looks like water. A lot of people think, oh, well then the baby's not getting enough. But when you have a tummy this big, that's all you need. And breast milk is so easily digestible. Once they drink it, they digest it, and they urinate or poop it out, basically. So it's really neat to see how that the body is made to not only nourish your child, but provide it the things that it needs to grow. Now, whenever you see the bottle that they give the baby, it's a pretty big bottle, and they'll feed the entire thing to the baby with the tummy this little. And at about 10 days, at about 3 days, the tummy is about this size. What's great about that is that's when your milk comes in. So they are getting more nourishment, but their stomach is growing to be able to hold that amount. And then later on, of course, the baby's about 10 days, the baby's tummy will be about this big. So that's when your body will produce more milk and allow for them to have more nourishment. Something that's very important is basically that the mother has skin-to-skin contact with the baby immediately after birth. Skin-to-skin is part of natural self-regulating. The process of that is when the baby is born, you place the baby skin-to-skin with the mother, and it will warm the baby's body so that the temperature regulates to where it needs to be. There was a study that was performed basically showing that a newborn will seek that contact, and they will find the nourishment that the mother provides for them. It was really interesting. There's videos where they basically do not intervene. They place the baby skin to skin with the mother, and then the process begins. And it's very natural. It's actually, years ago, long time ago, if the baby didn't have that natural inclination, they could have died, because it was so important for them to be able to find that nourishment and to be able to get to where it needed to be. The infant, basically, when the baby is born, childbirth is traumatizing sometimes for a mother, but more so for the infant. It can be a long process. It can cause issues with their heart rate. There can be so many different things that the baby goes through. So being able to immediately, when they enter the world, to be given to their mother is a comfort on top of that. So immediately they give the baby to the mother. The baby will begin to stroke the mother, kind of climb up the mother's torso, and that's why the nipple and the areola of the breast becomes darker during pregnancy, because the baby cannot see color, but it can tell that that's where it's at, and it will actually crawl up to the breast. It will stroke the breast so as to cause lactating to begin, and it will suckle, and as soon as it is done suckling, it will sleep. That is the process. And they did this research, and every single time, about 95% of the time, when the baby is placed skin to skin with the mother, this natural process happened. Breastfeeding, of course, can be complicated for some. Without proper education and assistance, some are more likely to just stop. Healthcare providers need to help that mother by allowing this skin to skin. A lot of times they don't, and now I'm only talking about a healthy infant. Of course, if an infant is not breathing or things like that, they need to be taken care of. But if the infant is healthy, They are born and equipped with this sequential process, and they will follow it. Another thing that's very interesting is that if a baby is born early and it is premature, we know that it cannot suck from a bottle or a breast. So what they do is they begin the gabbage feedings, which is through the nose. Now the mother can pump the breast milk, and they will feed the baby with the breast milk, which is the best source of nutrition. But sometimes, because the baby did not immediately breastfeed, it hinders that process and that connection with the mother. So what they found is if they basically supply the odor of the breast milk to the baby, then they associate the odor, because each mother has a distinct odor, and the baby can smell the mother even if they can't see them, and they will cry for them. So if they've been exposed to that breast milk, then basically they're going to know what to do when it comes time. So what they do is they take a piece of gauze and they saturate it with breast milk and place it about 2 centimeters from the infant's nose. When they stop feeding the baby, they immediately remove the odor. So the baby knows that feeding and that smell are all in one. So basically, the study showed in the end that the babies that had this, they were not only released from the hospital an average of 3 days earlier, but their weight and overall health improved much sooner than the other infants. And so what is so important is that the nurses make this environment conducive for the mother to succeed by simply just following a protocol. This stimulus proves to be beneficial and helpful transition for the preterm infants so that they can go straight to oral feeding. Another interesting fact about breast milk is that it also helps in the prevention and healing of urinary tract infections in the infant. We know that urinary tract infections lead to a lot of infant mortality rates. It's just what it is. A lot of times they can't detect it, but with breastfed babies in a study, they noticed the ones that were breastfed did not have these issues. And so it's really important that we think about all of the different things that are associated with breastfeeding and your baby. UTIs are associated with a bacteria that basically crosses over from the GI tract to the anogenital area, and they colonize in your lower urinary area. So with breast milk attributing to the health of the infant's intestinal flora, which we discussed at the beginning, we see the efforts of the milk are protective. And nurses are important caregivers that can be more proactive in supporting and helping the mother's breastfeed. The lifelong benefits are great, but short-term is just as valuable and sustainable. The next thing that I talked about at the beginning of the speech was the effects of breastfeeding on pain relief. They did a study, and it's really funny because when I was a breastfeeding mother and my children were receiving immunizations, I personally would breastfeed them immediately after. And I never breastfed them during because I didn't know this. I didn't know I was providing pain relief. Pain relief was nowhere near what I thought. I thought I was just comforting my baby. But studies have shown they had 2 different groups. One group that was breastfed while getting an immunization and one that was not. And what they found was crying was significantly reduced by 83%. There was also a significant difference in the heart rate of the infant as compared to the other group. The infant could easily still suck and swallow their mother's milk during and after the immunization. The skin-to-skin contact serves as an analgesic. So very few infants would attempt to cry, and when they did, the mother was encouraged to present the breast and stroke the baby. The results showed that the milk protein, fat, and the different flavors of the milk reduced crying, lowered their heart rate, and lowered their oxygen saturation. So it was basically just an all for all good. So nurses, again, can be instrumental in helping mothers with using this pain relief, breastfeeding as an effective pain relieving strategy. Last but not least, I did want to talk about the child care providers. They are so important. Our children are with them when we do have to leave them to go to work most of the day. I feel like if nurses were able to educate and Provide it as a continuing education course. Educate them on how to properly store breast milk, how to work with the mother that's breastfeeding. That breastfeeding can be so successful, but without this, then it's not going to happen. In conclusion, I just want to say that one day I plan to be a labor and delivery nurse and a lactation consultant. I feel like the education I can pass on to my patients will not only educate them on the fact that what their breast milk can do as far as nourishment, it can be so much more. There are so many studies that show the benefits to the mother and the baby from breastfeeding, that it's just, you think and you sit back, why would I not breastfeed? And you know, sometimes it is not for some, but the great thing about breastfeeding or breast milk, it's convenient, it's safe, and it's always at the right temperature. And if you've ever tasted formula, I advise you to try it. It is disgusting. And to imagine that your child its sole nutrition is that bottle for 1 year. Breast milk is awesome. We are made so fantastic. It changes, it changes depending on your baby's growing. If it's growing, you're going to produce more milk, you're going to produce fattier milk. It changes taste depending on what you eat. So the baby is always going to love to breastfeed because it is such a great nutrition and it tastes good. If you have a goal of breastfeeding and it is something that you really want to do, get support. Contact a lactation consultant. There's also La Leche League. They are a nonprofit organization of volunteers. And any question that you have 24/7, you can call somebody. But it is so important, if you do not get support and you do not have help, it will be detrimental to your nursing relationship.